least it's not sunny right now. We got some fog. It's not rain, but it's better than the blistering sunshine that we've experienced over the last number of days. And, of course, we're monitoring closely this wildfire near Susie's Lake and Bears Lake shopping area as it remains out of control this morning. The Department of Natural Resources say that 30 firefighters headed back to the woods this morning at first light. And, again, the current misty conditions are helping in the effort. The fog, however, is keeping any firefighting aircraft on the ground. So we will bring you the very latest as this story evolves. Vanessa's working the phones, trying to reach out to some people to give you the latest, including Dave Meldrum with HRM Fire. So we will do our best to bring you the latest. And it is a Wednesday. Typically, we have Dr. John Gillis, but he is away again this week. So that means that we will, again, along with bringing you the latest updates on this fire and this ongoing story, this evolving story, we will open the phone lines between 11 and 1 today and take your calls. And lots of calls yesterday. A lot of people talking about the woods ban and the need for it, or whether it's just people weighing in on that issue, and lots of controversy surrounding that. And look, it's about opinion, folks. That's what it is about. And we certainly welcome your opinion. I think one of the bigger questions that I think we should be asking is, why do we not have water bombers here in Nova Scotia? I mean, what has happened here? I know that multiple governments will blame each other, and the Houston government will blame the previous Liberal government, but why has the Houston government not been proactively seeking water bombers here in Nova Scotia? Because yesterday we did have a couple of water bombers at this blaze, but they were on loan from New Brunswick, which is dealing with firefighters or forest fires themselves. So thankfully we had the water bombers. And Dan Alstrand, of course, was there reporting live, and he told me this morning that the helicopters and their impact was minimal compared to certainly what the water bombers were able to do, and suggested that it made a big difference. So why have we been flat-footed when it comes to water bombers here in Nova Scotia? We have 4 helicopters. That's it. That's all we have for when it comes to aerial support and fires. And it's pretty evident that the need is here, and it's going to remain here based on everything that we're told about the climate and basically everything we're witnessing as well. So that's one of the questions that I'm asking you. Has the government taken its eye off the importance of dealing with fires when it comes to capacity or capability, in particular from the air? And again, we're relying on good luck and goodwill from other provinces at this point, and that's not a strategy. That's not a winning strategy for sure. Also, I saw this story this morning. St. John Mayor Donna Reardon, this on the CTV website, said the city is asking people who are sleeping in tents in Rockwood Park to move to safer spots amid ongoing dry weather that has led to burn bans. And in that province, they've issued a province-wide burn ban, of course, as similar to what has been done here. And so my question is, does this need to be a top priority in HRM as well? Is getting people who are living in the woods out of the woods, and these encampments, whatever size they are, do they need to be removed? First priority. It's a massive, massive fire risk, folks, having people live in the woods. They're cooking in the woods. We know that there would be drug activity. We know that they're smoking in the woods, and this is extremely dangerous. And the province has taken extreme measures to get people out of the woods. So why have we not taken extreme measures to get these people out of the woods? I know it's not easy to do. I know it's a resources issue. But again, if the priority is what it is, then let's get it done. Let's figure it out. And if what we're witnessing and what we're going through this summer if this is the new norm, and expected to continue for years to come, what might this make our future look like? Are massive changes needed in how we live in the summer, recreate, farm, forestry operations, tourism? And to that, what about forestry operations and other commercial operations? They are continuing to some level at least. And is that right? Again, if the priority is to get people out of the woods, then let's get it done. So these are some things that you can talk about when we open the phone lines, as mentioned, between 11 and 1. And look, perhaps many of you disagreed with some of my comments that I made yesterday. And I welcome your phone calls again today. Let's have a conversation. I'm all ears, and perhaps you can convince me that I was wrong in what I had to say about trails. I'm certainly willing to listen. That's for sure. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass at the control boards, doing a fine job as always. As mentioned, lots of time for your calls today between 11 and 1. I'll get some other things as well that caught my eye that we can get to as well, but I'll save that for later in the show. All right, joining me now is the Mayor of Lunenburg, Jamie Myra. Jamie, thanks for joining the show.
Thank you for reaching out.
All right, so I saw this interesting story on the CBC website, and the headline, Lunenburg's narrow streets being clogged by boondocking RVs campers. It becomes difficult sometimes for emergency vehicles to get through, according to you. And I happened to be in Lunenburg last weekend. We had my wife and I had family down, and we took them for a drive down to the southern part of the province, including Lunenburg, which we love, and we love to show off. But the congestion, I must say, was almost too much to deal with. I mean, just absolutely packed congestion in your small community, which is exacerbated, of course, by this forest restriction. I'm sure that you're feeling that, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I'll start by saying when we made the statement on boondocking, the woods and park areas in the province weren't closed, so we might have had a little more empathy and sympathy at the time for people boondocking if this announcement would have been made beforehand. So a lot of the stories you've read on this was before this situation, and now it's only gotten worse. But again, we do have a bit more empathy for people right now because their options are probably less available.
Empathy is one thing, but when it's a safety issue, then that matters, right? It is a safety issue, right?
Oh, definitely. It's the only reason we brought it forward. We actually had a fire call a couple of weeks ago where the trucks went down through town and they couldn't make one of the corners. They had to kitty corner back and forth a few times to make the turn. They had to direct the other trucks out through the back of town to get out through. So, I mean, it's definitely a safety issue for emergency vehicles. And since you've just mentioned you've been to Lunenburg, the big thing with Lunenburg is, especially in Old Town, the houses go right to the stop sign almost in a lot of areas. So you have to already edge your nose out to see a car coming from a stop sign as it is. And then you put a 8-foot wide RV or 6-foot wide RV at the corner by that stop sign. You can't see anything. So it just becomes a real danger.
Okay, what's the law say about it? What are the bylaws about this in Lunenburg?
Well, we can ticket people, and the bylaws, an older bylaw, it becomes a summary offense, and they can get anywhere from a $1,000 to $100 to a $10,000 fine, and we don't want to do that. So we're just asking people nicely. We're talking about putting nice little warning stickers on their vehicle, knocking on their door, and if they don't move, we might issue a fine, but we haven't found anyone yet. I don't think people realize that it is a safety issue as much as it is because they're not from the area, right? So we're just trying to make people aware that downtown, the core areas in downtown Lunenburg are not for boondocking or for overnight camping. And the biggest issue are these apps that are out there now, which I knew nothing about. There are all kinds of boondocking apps, and they have places listed actually in our town that certainly aren't conducive to overnight camping. One of the areas is on the way in and out of our volunteer fire department. So that not only impacts our volunteer firefighters coming in to get to the fire department, certainly impacts the vehicles leaving the fire hall for an emergency situation. And we wondered why so many people were camping there overnight, and we found this app where that's one of the spots they highlight.
All right, so just to be clear, is it illegal to boondock?
It is illegal to overnight camp in public spaces in Lunenburg, but we have not ticketed anybody, and that is not our direction to staff. Our direction to staff is to educate people on the safety concerns and knock on a door, ask them to move along. We welcome everybody. Lunenburg loves hosting visitors, as you just said. It's crazy in Lunenburg these last couple of weeks, and we want it to continue. We just want it to be continued in a safe manner.
Right. You want it to continue in a safe manner, and relying on people's goodwill is perhaps, I don't want to say naive, because I appreciate what you're doing and your tone. I get it. You want to be as welcoming as possible. But is that realistic to expect that goodwill is going to get this done?
Well, surprising enough, once you actually see our bylaw officer or the RCMP knocking on a camper or a van, because they usually sort of stick together. They're usually just not one alone. It's usually two or three of them here or two or three of them there. Usually once one gets the message, it gets out there pretty quickly. And it has been better the last little while. I drive around every morning around 7:15, and there's a lot less people overnight parking or camping on public streets, I'd say, this week than there was a week ago. So the message is definitely getting out. And to be honest, some residents are taking it upon themselves to knock on the door and say you can't camp there. And whether that's right or wrong, they are, and people are listening. Our big thing is we have to get better signage as well. In most of the community, we have little, 12 by 12 signs that says no overnight parking or no overnight camping. We're ramping up that. The town has ordered some new signage to put in some hot spots, and there will be some signage as you drive into the community just to make people aware, because a lot of people aren't aware of our issue.
How do you manage, I suppose, traffic? Because, again, you want as many people there as possible, but at some point you don't want it to turn away people, so that people like myself won't say, you know what, Lunenburg's too packed, it's too busy, I'm not going back there. Because it was almost, to be quite honest, and it's a testament to how beautiful the community is and what you have to offer. But you can be over busy or a little too busy. How do you strike that balance?
It's a tough balance to strike. We want as many people as we possibly can get, but you do get to a point where it's like, you might have to look at some options. The big thing is parking is a huge issue in town, and I think more so for the locals than it is for the visitors, because visitors will park 3 or 4 blocks up the street and walk around, because that's what you do in most tourism destination communities. I've been to Banff and I've been to Canmore, and you have to walk blocks to get to where the action is, quite frankly. So people that travel are used to that. The locals are the ones that are really put out for about 2.5 months a year. And again, as a community, I guess we would like to thank the locals for putting up with this, but this is really the economic driver of your town right now. So without these 2 to 3 months of craziness, a lot of your businesses would not exist in the town of Lunenburg.
All right. So again, a reminder to people that you don't want to fine them if people are listening. You don't want to issue tickets, but it is possible, and a reminder that it is illegal to boondock, right?
It is, and it's funny. The definition of boondocking is technically a form of camping, where campers stay in undeveloped areas, and undeveloped seems to be the key word nowadays. I think what's happened is over the years, some of the big chains in the U.S. like Walmart and Costco and those facilities, they started encouraging people parking in their parking lot because obviously they were getting business the next day from them when people were waking up, and it seemed to really take off. Now people are just hopping in these campers, going for 3 weeks and not making any reservations anywhere. And unfortunately, when you get to Lunenburg, if you don't have reservations made beforehand, you have a hard time finding them. So a lot of them are doing it because they want to stay here and they don't know what their options are, to be honest.
For sure. All right, Mr. Mayor, appreciate it. Thanks so much, and we'll keep in touch.
Well, thank you very much, and anytime you're in Lunenburg, stop in and say hi. We love to see everybody. Lunenburg's definitely a tourism-friendly community, and we hope to continue to be that.
Well, it certainly is a gem, that's for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Todd.
All right, take care. Jamie Myra, the mayor of Lunenburg. And again, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from going there. It's an amazing community. And it's a true treasure for the province. It really is. It's great. But I will say, he mentioned parking. Parking was. I've been to Lunenburg a number of times, of course, and this was the first time that I really, really had to park. I mean, quite a long ways out of the main core because it was just parking was impossible. But again, it's a testament to the community and what it has to offer, and it's great that they're busy. But again, it's all about a balance, and I suppose every community deals with that, right? Including here in HRM and parking downtown. This is something we hear about regularly. All right, so we'll chat about the heat and the drought and the fires with Allister Aalders when we come back. All right, time to chat with our weather specialist, Allister Aalders. Allister, thanks for joining the show. We appreciate your time. You're a busy man these days, right?
Yeah, I mean, going from, just days and days of sunny weather, but, obviously we're still dealing with a fairly dry pattern, but obviously when these situations unfold, things do get quite busy. So glad to be on the show today.
All right, so I guess first off, let's talk about the drought conditions and the dry conditions. Look, everybody knows this, but it really is. It can't be understated how dry it is out there, right?
It's extremely dry. I mean, the lawns pretty much everywhere are, brown. The soil is dusty. People are describing, if you're walking on the grass, it almost feels like, needles are, pinning into your feet. So it is extremely dry, and we did get some new data on just how severe the drought is from the Canada Drought Monitor. And now I should mention this was the assessment as of the end of July. So we've obviously been in several days now, 12, 13 days of dry weather since that assessment. But at the time, they observed that a severe drought has now occurred in the Halifax area. That includes really most of Metro, and it extends northeast through most of Hants County into southern Cumberland and Colchester counties, and it also includes most of southeastern Cape Breton. And then it's otherwise a moderate drought for the rest of Nova Scotia, except parts of Yarmouth and Shelburne counties where they consider it to be abnormally dry. I mean, drought is really difficult to assess anywhere, but especially here in Atlantic Canada. And I know there are some other modelings and maps that are available online that do show that we're in a more, extreme or exceptional drought region-wide. But I've noticed from some of these maps, when I advance them forward, they seem more susceptible to rain, after some showers that are in the forecast Thursday. For some areas, the drought goes from extreme to none. So you can't really, you have to use a bit of caution with some of those maps. And again, it just reiterates the fact that drought is extremely hard to measure. There's no real universal way to measure it, but most of Nova Scotia is either in a moderate or severe drought right now, if not abnormally dry. And as we've mentioned, it's just been due to the lack of rainfall. I mean, June was the driest on record at Stanfield, only 51 millimeters. July was the driest at Stanfield since 1997, and the fourth driest on record overall. And the records there go back to 1954. And then, month to date at Stanfield, only 3 millimeters of rain, and that was on the first day of the month. Shearwater's only had 1 millimeter of rain month to date. So it is extremely dry. We've had, well less than 40% of our seasonal rainfall so far this summer. And we're in a major deficit that's going to take a lot of time to make up for, because these issues do not just resolve themselves with a few showers or a few rain events. We're going to need multiple long-lasting rain events to make up for this deficit and take us out of this drought.
Yeah, and of course we talked about this on the show before, and this compounded on the fact that winter has not been typical. It's been lack of snow melt and ice and all that stuff, and so this is adding to the problem, right?
Yeah, we've talked about this, for weeks now, that this situation, for the most part, goes back to last fall. When I compare the drought assessment to last July, Halifax and the South Shore was abnormally dry and not uncommon to see in the summertime. But as we went through last fall and this past winter, we were in a moderate, at times severe drought. And in part, the contribution to that is because snow is melting either during the season from the warm-ups that we get with those mixed precipitation events, or it's melting earlier in the season, so we don't have that snowpack to sustain us, say, further into April or further into May like we used to be able to rely on. We're also not getting as much snowfall in, say, late March and early April that we used to receive here in the Halifax area. So it all kind of works together to provide this cumulative effect that we've really seen since this time last summer, but certainly the fall. I mean, I should mention, we did make up for the drought conditions in April and May. This past April and May, we were out of the drought conditions, but obviously with just so little rainfall and, with warm and hot temperatures, it's no surprise that we're not back. It's no surprise that we're back into this situation because we were barely out of it really after the rain we did have in the spring.
Okay, so when it comes to the continent, I think I heard yesterday that this was, I think parts of New Brunswick were the hottest spots on not the continent, but certainly North America yesterday. Is that true?
One of the hottest places. I was looking this morning, and I believe it might have been Lytton, British Columbia, or somewhere in BC that beat it out. But New Brunswick has had some of the hottest temperatures over the last couple of days. The hottest temperature was in Miramichi, New Brunswick, where it was 38 degrees yesterday. And that's when you break down the numbers and, really dissect them, it was technically 38.6 degrees. And that's less than 1 degree of breaking their all-time hottest temperature ever recorded in the province, which is 39 point, I believe, 4 degrees Celsius. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head right now, but very close to breaking their all-time temperature record. That dates back to 1935. And even a place like Prince Edward Island, which gets pretty hot in the summertime, unofficially, Maple Plains PEI, they were up to 37.6 degrees yesterday. So technically we would round that up to 38 degrees. And that breaks the previous all-time hottest temperature ever recorded on PEI, which was 36.7 in Charlottetown. Same heat wave back on August 19th, 1935. So we are breaking some long-standing and very high records in terms of, we're talking about some of the hottest temperatures ever recorded in the region, with records falling at several of these sites in New Brunswick, PEI, and even in Nova Scotia. We haven't broken, the hottest temperature ever recorded in Nova Scotia record, but many of the weather stations were up in the mid and high 30s, yesterday and the day before. And you compound that with the humidity feeling well into the 40s. Very hot, very dry, and just very humid weather. It's been a very hot stretch, and I'm sure, not all of us are getting relief from the hot weather today, but here in the Halifax area, I'm sure, the high of around 26 today is welcome, especially for the crews battling that wildfire near Susie's Lake.
Yeah, and no measurable rain on the horizon, right?
Not really. I mean, a spotty shower possible today. The fog and drizzle has helped crews a bit from what DNR has reported. The next chance of rain is a cold front tomorrow night into Friday morning, but the showers along that are convective, so they're very hit or miss and scattered along the front. There's a risk of a thunderstorm or a downpour along the front, but unless you get into that localized heavy rainfall, amounts for Halifax and the Atlantic coast are looking quite minimal, traced to 5 millimeters, locally higher if a storm were to develop. It does look like perhaps a 5 to 15 plus millimeter shot of showers from the valley around the Minas Basin into Cumberland County and northern Cape Breton. So, I mean, we will take anything we can get. I mean, that's better than nothing for them. I just wish we could see a province-wide rainfall of that much, but fortunately it looks confined to those areas. And then we're back into sunshine, as we go later in the day Friday, and the next chance of showers then is not until Sunday night and Monday from another cold front. And really, it's looking like much the same through the end of the month, just these weak disturbances or frontal boundaries delivering shower chances. Watching, what is now Tropical Storm Erin, expected to become a hurricane late next week. Early guidance seems to favor it remaining offshore, but this is still, 7 to 9 days out, so it's really too early to even conclude or speculate on its track. I know a lot of people have been saying, it would be beneficial to have tropical or rain from a hurricane, but then we can also run into issues with that too. The rain with a hurricane or a tropical storm is notoriously heavy because it's also convective, so you run into the potential of overland and flash flooding with these systems, or the rain running off because it can't absorb into the ground. That's going to be a challenge too, is just the ground being able to absorb any rainfall we do get. And then, of course, any tropical storm or hurricane can come with the risk of damaging winds and storm surge. So there's unfortunately no great solution on the horizon right now. I don't see this pattern turning around really for the rest of the month. And if it doesn't do so in September, it does look like we'll be dealing with this as we head into the fall season.
Allister, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you on Friday. Thank you.
Sounds good. See you Friday.
All right, take care. Allister Aalders, our weather specialist. Major institutional investors are asking the federal government to give them a reason to invest more at home in the upcoming fall budget. We'll discuss this with Robert Huish when we come back. Major institutional investors are asking the federal government to give them a reason to invest more at home in the upcoming fall budget, says the Liberal MPs leading budget consultations across Canada. Joining us to talk about all this is Robert Huish, Associate Professor at Dalhousie University in the Department of International Development Studies. Robert, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Todd. Good morning to you.
All right. So the Liberals are hosting roundtables with CEOs from various Canadian industries, heads of chambers of commerce, union leaders, First Nation groups to feed their concerns into the fall budget process. Also, the representatives from the Canada's Big Six banks and the Maple 8 large Canadian pension funds also getting a voice with the decision makers. So, what are your thoughts on this type of engagement?
Well, I think this is the big moment when Prime Minister Carney moves from being the skilled bureaucrat, the skilled business leader, to now the politician. When these budgetary processes come together, the influence that comes from all the groups that you mentioned are going to influence which way the cabinet starts saying, well, this needs to be invested in and this needs to be less. Are they always the best economic decisions? No. This is where the political influence, the politics really come to the forefront. And so as these consultations are being heard, there's always going to be in the mind of every cabinet minister, every senior member of Mr. Carney's government thinking, what's best for my riding? What can I do for re-election chances if my community, my constituency, the industry that I'm trying to represent, if they say we need this and we don't deliver, what are the political costs to that? So it's a typical moment in pre-budget politics, but it's also one of, I think, a transition where you've had Mr. Carney had this pretty stellar CV, and now he's going in the deep end without the water wings, and because the federal budget is the big one.
Okay, what type of things do you think that these heavy hitters are asking for from the government? What are the asks?
Right. Okay. So there's the obvious ones like any market trading with the U.S. There's now tariffs on non-CUMSA goods, and particularly the steel industry, the auto industry. They're at the forefront saying, look, we're really going to get clobbered here if these tariffs keep up. Softwood lumber as well, that's in that equation. Some of the other more regional industries or interests, maybe they'll get some attention thrown their way too. But that's the big one, is to try to do the counter tariffs that is imposed on Canada by the U.S. Not only like in terms of reciprocity, but in terms of keeping our industries up and going. Now that's a tricky thing to do, because once public money starts going into industries, they eventually have to find a profitable output to another market in order to make ends meet. Otherwise, this begins the recipe for inflation. So that's the one thing that's coming into the equation. The other thing that we see that many people are going to be demanding is improvement to interprovincial trade barriers. This seems to be the biggest argument being made in these consultations, to say, why is it so much easier to get product X to Asia than it is across the country? And so we know that our rail lines are slow pokey. We know that we're unable to effectively transport goods coast to coast by air at a reasonable price. And if it's seafaring traffic, I mean, it's cheaper to get it to Europe or to Asia if you're in British Columbia than it is across the country. So if there's some innovations in that, I think will be interesting to see. And Mr. Carney's hinted at that big ticket infrastructure projects, from housing to even rail development, could be on the table. But the last thing, Todd, is also, and this is something that's sort of breaking out today, is that China has just levied a 75.8% tariff on Canadian canola. And that's massive for two reasons. Because first off, you've got the value of Canadian canola going to China. In 2024, it was $4.9 billion. So China is unable to produce enough oilseed, or seed oils, I should say, for its own population. So it's heavily dependent upon imports, just as it is with steel. But right now, they've lobbied this because Canada still has tariffs on Chinese goods, including EVs. So here we go. And where China has turned its interest to get those oil seeds is Ukraine, bringing in $5.26 billion, even Russia. So $3.5 billion in trade there. So I think really in these discussions, and as Mr. Carney is getting ready for the fall session, is if we're going to be about removing tariffs, it's going to have to be about removing some tariffs against China as well. Because right now, by boycotting Canadian canola, which is the preferred good, China is giving Russia $3.51 billion in business. So we can see how the connections there start to spread out.
All right, what's going to be the ask when you talk with China? Will it be perhaps EVs, or what might we have to give it a little bit on here, or a lot on?
EVs would be the easiest one to do, in particular because of where most of our EV market currently is, right? There's the Teslas in the States, there's some European ones, and then Hyundai is sort of coming through strong as well. It would be the easiest one to do, and then with that sort of olive branch, we can start getting to the bigger healing period, shall we say, of previous foreign interference and, hey, what was up with the 5G network with Huawei? Maybe some of those sore points can get smoothed over because really, Canada will need a big trading partner to rely on if the U.S. continues the hostility that we felt. And China's one of them. And again, China is one, you can look at it in terms of global security. The more business that Canada does with China, the less business China will do with Russia.
And also, of course, the price of EVs, if they come down, that'll incentivize Canadians to buy EVs, right? I think that's a gimme.
And you know what just sort of shocked me, pardon the pun, is that when you talk about that, Todd, if there's a huge influx of vehicles that are affordable to Canadians, there you have the incentive for big infrastructure projects, charging stations. Yeah. Even the Dutch have entertained technology where EVs can charge on a road while driving. So there's a perfect opportunity to start to bring those two things together. And of course, with any time that we're importing foreign heavily processed goods or finished goods like this, if it's EVs, if it's military equipment, here comes the kickoff jobs for parts, for service, for secondary sales. All of that can come into the equation too. So this could be quite a wise move if the anti-Chinese tariffs discussion were to go forward.
All right, but of course the federal government has incentives, and the Ontario government has heavily subsidized the motor or the car building manufacturing industry in Southern Ontario, of course. So that is a consideration, I'm sure, right? How do you balance that?
Exactly. So, if it's a thing where these finished vehicles are coming in and there's no production whatsoever within the domestic market, people get their feelings hurt. But don't forget, there's also been automotive manufacturers who have overcome that in the past. So with Volkswagen, for example, they allowed the production of Volkswagens to be done in Mexico. And we could also look at things like that here, that if there's something what Subaru does in the U.S. is for certain models, all the parts come in from Japan, but the assembly takes place in the U.S. So there's models that could also work for that as well. That if there's plants shutting down in Southern Ontario, they could be fired up again, retooled, and prepared for a different set of packages and parts to come in.
Okay, when it comes to pension funds and in particular CPP, I mean, look, bottom line is when it comes to those managing these funds is to get a return of investment on for the pension holders and the stakeholders. That to me trumps, pardon the pun, Trump's investment in a particular country or even region. What are your thoughts on that? Or maybe not. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you're right on that. I mean, those pension funds have to really rely on stability in order to make sure those returns are coming through. So CPP is the big one. The Ontario Teachers Pension Plan is another one. And, there's other public service pension plans also in place. And if they start taking hits, then, you've got some issue there for sure. How you create that stability is by making sure that your key fundamentals for the companies, the industries that you're investing in are providing a solid price to earnings ratio, that they are able to continue growth, and that they're able to offer investors, being the big investment firms or even individuals, dividend income over time. So if you've got that, if you've got opportunity for growth, good price to earnings ratio, and dividend capital potential, you're on your way. Now, that's something that's right in Mr. Carney's back pocket. He understands how that finance works. So I'm sure that with these consultations right now about where to bring investment in, those will be the points at the forefront of the conversation. And that might mean, Todd, that unfortunately there could be some political heat coming back. Something like canola, look at the flexibility and price of that. There's some farmers in Alberta right now in Saskatchewan saying they've lost $90,000 today alone just with the new tariff coming in, because that's a flexible commodity. So for things like that, it's going to be about having to use some public money to help those out in need, at the same time using other public money to make sure you get those investment returns back. Okay,
lastly, the green sector. What are your thoughts on investment in the green sector? And because, again, its ideology is one thing, but return on investment and long-term return is got to be front and center. So what are your thoughts on that component to all of this?
It's pretty high risk, right? We've seen so many green tech over the years, if it's being the financing mechanisms of wind farms, if it's been the hydrogen development and that sort of thing, even in Atlantic Canada, all of these are often very new, and part of that plan is for a bigger outfit to sort of buy them up. One of the things that is going to, I think, return to the conversation in this year in Parliament will be nuclear. And, you have places like Ontario, Manitoba, and New Brunswick in particular that do have the facilities to expand nuclear production. And in terms of carbon offsetting and as we're in the midst of forest fires and scorching heat across the country, having something that doesn't produce carbon but yet has a very serious issue when it comes to waste disposal might start re-entering the conversation, because nuclear really got the bad rap in the 80s and the 90s. And I think we're going to start to see a return to those conversations as technologies and handling of waste and even using less wasteful material could come back to the equation.
Robert, always great. Thanks so much. We'll do it again.
Thanks, Todd. Looking forward to it.
All right, take care. Robert Huish, Associate Professor at Dalhousie University. Bike lane construction causing frustration in downtown Halifax. We'll talk about this when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, I saw the story on the CBU website. Bike lane construction is underway in downtown Halifax. The Brunswick Street, Sackville Street intersection in the heart of downtown has been shut down by construction bike lanes. Joining us to talk about all this is Paul MacKinnon, the CEO of the Downtown Halifax Business Commission. Paul, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, Todd, how are you?
I'm well, you?
I'm good. Now, who would have thought, if you go back a year ago, all the things happening in the world, that the most divisive thing that Haligonians would be talking about in the summer of 2025 would be bike lanes. But here we are.
That's true. Well, the story suggests that you're frustrated by this. Is that accurate or what?
I don't know that it's completely accurate, although I think that's the way. I think the way it was kind of edited together and the quotes they chose to use, it did come across. And it's funny because after that story was out, I got two emails. One from someone who was mad at me because I was so anti-bike lane, and another from someone who was mad at me because I seemed so pro-bike lane. So maybe the tone was right. I don't know. But no, I think, anytime there's construction of anything, it's frustrating, when everyone's concerned about traffic and holdups. And so anytime there's construction that interrupts traffic flow, people get frustrated with it. So I think the context was more about the timing of it, that it's too bad this is happening, now in August and couldn't have been done much earlier in the summer, maybe when traffic was a bit slower. And certainly as we move into September, that's the high time for congestion and traffic and a little bit of this construction will bleed into that time period, which I think is unfortunate. But it is what it is. And anytime you have to, block a traffic lane to do construction of any sort, people get frustrated with that, of course.
Yeah. What are your members telling you? Are you hearing from your members about all of this or what?
We do. So I can think a couple of different things. So as the Downtown Halifax Business Commission, we launched a vision for downtown last year, and it has a whole series of recommendations. There's about 17 recommendations. One of those recommendations is to have a complete connected AAA bike network in the downtown that also has a connected good commuter route to the north end and one to the south end. And so this work on Brunswick Street actually does help fulfill that vision. And when you once this is done, it'll get us pretty close to having a pretty good, well-connected, separated bike lane path in the downtown. So that's certainly not a bike lane in every street, but it is a connected network, and I think that's good for the downtown. Even though there's been lots of I think thoughts about that. Having said that, it would be disingenuous if I said all of our members are behind that. We've got lots of businesses that don't like the bike lanes, that get frustrated, when they see a bike lane in front of their business that maybe has taken away parking spaces or maybe a lane of traffic, and they're not seeing that it's being well utilized. So there's definitely frustration with the bike lanes from a number of the members, but I think part of that frustration stems from the fact that we just haven't done a good job, I don't think, as a city in building the bike network fast enough and having it connected. So one of the reasons that they're not being well utilized or as well utilized as they should be is that you get in a connected, or a separated bike lane and it goes for a couple blocks and then suddenly you're back into traffic. It's really got to be that connected piece that's going to make it work much better. So until we get to that point, I don't think we can really tell how effective the bike lanes could be.
Okay, but look, I can understand how a business would feel, right? The bottom line is if you're a business and somebody can pull in front of your operation and park and get out, that's always going to be something that you're not going to want to lose, right? I think that's pretty evident.
Absolutely. I mean, businesses love on-street parking. And we had this argument. A lot of people don't remember this 20 years ago when when businesses started putting out sidewalk cafes. So restaurants, taking up sidewalk space, taking up parking spaces to do sidewalk cafes. We don't really argue about that anymore because the cafes have undoubtedly just brought more people to downtown, made downtown more exciting and more vibrant. But it was very controversial at the time. And every summer, there's probably about 160 on-street parking spaces that disappear because the sidewalk cafes go out. But people, of course, they still find a way to come here because they want to go to those cafes. And where there once was a single parking spot, which maybe, brought one or two people downtown, there's 20, 50 people sitting out there right in front of your business. So it is part of this, making downtown vibrant is ultimately kind of our goal, and allowing people to get downtown in an easier way, whether it's by car or by bike or by, we've got a growing number of the e-scooters and the e-bikes. We need to create better options for people to get to the downtown. So there's always trade-offs. There's no question. But I think until we see, a good connected network, we won't really get a good sense about how effective it would be. Having said that, there's all sorts of arguments we could have about, the Moore Street one and what's the right design. The Brunswick Street one is a little bit less controversial because actually the work that they're doing is really just enhancing a bike lane that's already there, that's been there for years and years. I should mention too that it's not just a bike lane project. It's really a streetscape enhancement project. And part of that was born out of, I think, some frustrations that people had when when we host things like the World Juniors and there's all these great shots of the Scotiabank Centre and the base of Citadel Hill. Brunswick Street is not a terribly attractive street. So some of this work actually is going to really beautify Brunswick Street, which is the base of Citadel Hill, which is one of our most visited tourist destinations. So there is kind of a place-making beautification aspect to this as well, not just the bike lane. But the bike lane itself is already there. It's really just being enhanced. That's what the work is about right now.
Do you have an opinion on Moore Street and the controversy surrounding that?
Boy, Moore Street has taken a long, long time. I don't in terms of the design because I wouldn't pretend to be a traffic designer. So, if there are legitimate concerns about moving it to one way because it moves even more buses on the Spring Garden Road, which I think causes a problem, or if it blocks access to emergency vehicles, I think obviously the city needs to look at that. I think ultimately there's going to be some sort of bike lane. There has to be some sort of bike lane kind of connecting Dal with the Lower Water Street bike lane. It will connect with this Brunswick Street one. So I think there will be some sort of, bike infrastructure that happens there, and it's necessary to complete the network. Whether that was the right design, I couldn't say. And it seems like there were some real concerns from some people that need to be taken seriously on that. So, it's back to the drawing board, and I think that's what the city's working on right now is what's the alternative. So I don't know whether that was the right design, but there's going to be, I think, some sort of bike infrastructure happening on Moore Street or one of those east-west streets to connect and complete the network.
Okay, Paul, appreciate your time. Thanks for doing this.
Great, thank you.
All right, take care. Paul MacKinnon, CEO of the Downtown Halifax Business Commission. And now we've got some time for you. We've got lots of time for you, folks. Dr. Gillis is away again today, so we will take your calls between now and 1 o'clock. So what is on your mind today? 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Again, 902-405-6000. How about the fact that we're relying on New Brunswick to help us out with water bombers? Fortunately, they were able to do so yesterday. And the Susie's Lake fire, of course, which is still out of control, and we will monitor and bring you the latest, of course. But what are your thoughts on the fact that we in Nova Scotia have no water bombers, and this is not something that's going to change, folks? We have no the demand for water bombers has skyrocketed as provinces across the country are looking to get more water bombers. So even if a policy was shifted immediately to water bombers, it would be years before we would see any because the demand is simply so high right now. So what are your thoughts on that or whatever else you've got in your mind? 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Your calls when we come back.
Axe.
All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. How could it possibly be that we in a province like Nova Scotia, so densely populated with so much woods around us all and forests everywhere, and we've been told for years now that these times were coming, that conditions were drying up, that unprecedented heat and hot weather and fire conditions, and we've been told this for so long. Yeah, we don't have water bombers, and we have 4 helicopters. That's it in the province. And yesterday, if not for the fact that New Brunswick provided a couple of water bombers to help with the Susie's Lake fire, who knows what might have materialized. So we're relying on goodwill from other provinces and good luck from Mother Nature. Really, that's what we're relying on in order to deal with forest fires here in the province. So why has this not been a priority? And here's the real issue, folks, that even if it was a priority, let's say today, let's say that the government decided we're going to invest in water bombers. This story that was sent along to me from a listener on the CBC website, as Canada is again dealing with massive wildfires, the increasing severity of natural disasters is having a knock-on effect of spiking demand for water bomber planes. It'll be years before Canada gets its hands on a new one. Again, this story was published in June. Premiers gathered in Saskatchewan, one of the provinces currently gripped by wildfires. They were primarily meeting to discuss major infrastructure projects, but a number of premiers talked to reporters about dealing with the wildfire situation. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, whose province has also seen thousands of wildfires in recent weeks, mentioned that his government is waiting for an order of water bombers, but he doesn't expect them to be delivered anytime soon. The Manitoba government put an $80 million down payment on 3 new water bombers earlier in the year. They'll only be ready for the 2031-2032 fire seasons. So here's a government which is being much more proactive than ours, and it's going to be at least 6-7 years before they see water bombers. So basically, we're in a dire situation, folks. And how could it be that we as a province have not committed to water bombers? It's unbelievable. And, of course, this government will blame the previous Liberal government, I'm sure. But after a while, folks, you have to expect that the government of the day will do whatever it can to deal with this long term, because it's not going to change. Obviously, these conditions seem to be persistent. So what are your thoughts on that, folks, or whatever else you've got in your mind? 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's kick it off with David. Hello, David.
Hi, Todd. Yeah, just in light of this drought and then, the recent fire and stuff like that, I just want to talk about wastewater and how prevalent it is and how little benefit we put all that to. So just 3 or 4 examples here. One, air conditioning and refrigeration. I just have a little 5,000 BTU window air conditioner unit, and on a humid summer day, that'll put out about 5 liters of water. I just live in a typical sort of north end 2-story old kind of building. The bottom area is a business. Their heat pump and air conditioning mode will put out like 20, 25 liters. And the nearby Royal Bank at Agricola and Almond, their air conditioning system, by just sort of extrapolation, will put out easily over 100 liters of water today. But then you take sort of grocery stores with their sort of massive, not only air conditioning, but refrigeration systems, all the large buildings, like you're literally looking at thousands of liters of water a day. So just from that source alone, across the city, it's a huge volume. But then we just have the surface water runoff as well, too. So, basically, say just take a light rainfall shower, 10 millimeters. Well, 10 milliliters is 0.01 meters. So if you take a 30 meter by 30 meter section of parking lot, 30 times 30 times 0.01 works out to 9 cubic meters, which works out to 9,000 liters of water. So you imagine all the parking lots, roads across the city and stuff like that. But then add to that just sort of, your dishwater, your showering, your toiletries and stuff. I mean, I wash my dishes. There's a little bit of food solids and detergent, nothing else in there. Take a shower, most of that water running down the drain is clean. And then you take your toilets, you're flushing them. It's mostly just liquids with the occasional solids. So, yeah, just all of these sources of water across the city and, the province could be put to much better use. And, just sort of thinking of like into the future, we also have a massive infrastructure problem. So I think they rate the cost of replacing all our sewage and water pipes in the city at something like $2 billion or more. So, and that would basically involve just digging up, huge parts of, the HRM and the province and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, there's different ways to be creative and find solutions to it, but maybe in the long term, we should sort of move more towards sort of on-site processing of sort of liquid waste, rainwater, sewage water, all that kind of stuff, and then sort of finding ways to separate out the solids and just return that back to the land because, if we're able to do that, then, this city would be green and fresh even in the sort of driest times of the year, and it doesn't really have to be the case that human civilizations are always sort of a harm to the environment, and sort of historically and stuff like that, the water we put out, but then sort of the garbage we, produce can be composted and stuff that we can return that to the land and actually help it to thrive and, be abundant. So, I mean, yeah, definitely in terms of, avoiding disaster situations and stuff, it could be helpful, but also just creating a much more sort of healthier, beneficial, enjoyable urban environment as well, too, if we could just sort of use some of the resources that we already have available, currently waste, but put them to better uses.
Okay, David, appreciate the call.
Thank you, Todd.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care, 902-405-6000. Peter, hello.
Good morning, Todd. Lots of excitement in the province. I guess that's one way to put it. The reason I'm calling, Todd, is you asked some questions about water bombers and the capacity for the province. The province has known since 2012 when they shut down their Helitack operational team, which was Nova Scotia's fire insurance policy, basically. In Shubenacadie, we had a team of firefighting frontline experts and a Bell 212 helicopter. It was the only helicopter in the fleet that was capable of moving a 5-man team and all their equipment on site in a rapid response effort. So that, for example, if you had, over my career with DNR for 29 years fighting forest fires, those were the guys that kept fires at 3 to 5 acres instead of 30 to 40,000 acre fires. They could respond, put a team on the ground. They would start firefighting activities, initial attack, and then that biggest helicopter that we had would start water bombing. So roughly around 2012, a decision was made to disband that team and then ultimately sell that helicopter. And the province bought a team of, different helicopters, and none of them had that same capacity, either to drop water or to move a Helitack team. So Helitack was basically taken off the board. Most of the other provinces across Canada not just have one Helitack team, they have multiple teams. So Nova Scotia, we don't have one. And I can tell you personally that I told the Premier in 2015 about the potential disaster that this would bring, and that got completely ignored. So right now, after what happened out in Jasper, the federal government loosened up some funds, and the province ordered 4 new helicopters. None of the new helicopters that are scheduled to be delivered here in Nova Scotia are capable of that water dropping capacity of the Bell 212, nor are any of these new machines going to be able to deliver a Helitack team on site. I'll give you an example, Todd. That big fire that we happened down in the big Shelburne fire, Helitack would have been the guys who were initially sent down, and that would have been a completely different circumstance that day if we had those guys. And so they were our front line, very best that the province had to offer, and they're gone. And not only that, Todd, shortly after that, the province also completely dismantled our fire tower system. So a lot of people still think we have fire towers in the province, but they're long gone. And that was a highly efficient system that was beyond working well. And so what happened is the province was doing cost-cutting measures, and they decided that those towers and their operators weren't required anymore. And the justification they gave for that decision was that everybody in the woods in Nova Scotia now basically has a cell phone. And those people with cell phones would replace the tower system as Nova Scotia's new early warning system. And that's the system that they've relied on since the towers and Helitack have been gone. And now those same people aren't permitted to be into the woods to give you a call in the event of a lightning strike fire. Or, for example, it could be something simple as a broken bottle laying in a ditch somewhere that'll start a fire. I just went through some data here that says, I believe since 2003, Todd, we've had over 1,154 fires in the province that the cause of them was arson. There are 0 cases of people walking in the woods that cause fires in the province. So what has to happen is, right now, rather than rely on other provinces, and the people of Nova Scotia need to understand that even when a call goes out for support from other provinces, if their conditions don't allow, they're not allowed to spring out their helicopters and send them out. The call will go out west to CIFC, and they organize that on a national basis. But if they don't have the machinery, you're not getting it, and you're going to be there, hat in hand, and nobody putting anything in your hat. And to me, because I did this work and know what I'm talking about, it's just gross negligence. Things need to be done. And to put it in perspective, by the way, Todd, when the Premier canceled the user pay system for crossing the bridges, the update on those bridges, my understanding is the maintenance fee is roughly $20 million annually. $20 million would have bought 4 high-tech, state-of-the-art helicopters with Helitack capabilities that could have been stationed around the province. And I don't care if they never get used for the next 2-3 years. Basically, they have to be looked at as buying fire insurance for your house.
Yeah, it's like having a fire truck that's at the station. It's the same exact thing, right?
Exactly the same thing, Todd.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, now it's a little more expensive. These machines aren't cheap, but the Helitack teams, probably over my career, they probably saved us from major catastrophic fires in the province at least 12 times while I was on shift.
Yep, sure.
Responsible for fires, especially in the Highlands and down in some of these more remote areas. Now we have nobody in there with cell phones. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example. I called the fire center here the other day because I needed clarification on some things, and I wanted to know, are golf courses in the woods closed? And the answer was, we don't know, and it's not up to us. I said, well, it kind of should be. And then I wanted to know, do the fire regulations apply to our Indigenous people? And the ban, they said, well, not on federal land, and I don't think provincially either. And then I wanted to know, there was a fire just started here recently down in the monastery area by a train. And back in the 80s and 90s, that was one of the really frequent causes of fires that we had. And I want to know, so is train traffic going to be banned? And then here I am in Bedford this morning, and when I get up this morning, it's raining. And I watched a guy walking by with a dog, and I said, Bud, there's a trail over there. You don't want to go through that, even though it's raining, because you're going to get a $28,852.50 fine if you do it. He was kind of laughing about it. But the reality of it is when it comes to water bombers, we're at the mercy of everybody else in Canada, and we go to the back of the bus because they have to look after their own needs first. And we are shorthanded, and there's literally no reason for this at all.
Yeah, good points, Peter. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Excellent points.
Buddy.
Okay, take care.
Good, buddy. Bye.
All right, 902-405-6000, folks. What is on your mind, and what are your thoughts on this, folks? It's a desperate situation that we find ourselves in, and no end in sight. Again, for the reasons why I mentioned, even if we started being proactive today on it, it would be years and years and years before we could get orders filled for water bombers. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Facts.
All right, continuing with your calls till 1 o'clock, 902-405-6000. A quick email from Joe, then back to the phones. Joe says, wildfires are not a new thing. The Porter's Lake fire was 15 years ago or so, Both political parties are at fault for kicking the can down the road, and I can 100% guarantee you that walking was not the cause. The water bomber that New Brunswick helped us with yesterday, and again back in the Shelburne fire, has had to reload the fire retardant back in New Brunswick too, which is ridiculous. Tim Houston has dropped the ball and blamed citizens for walking in the woods. 902-405-6000. So what's your take on this or whatever else you've got in your mind? Again, 902-405-6000. Cameron's giving us a call. Hello, Cameron.
Yeah, morning, Todd. I just, water bombers, look, the premiers, whoever they are, all of them, they're totally responsible for the lack of that, having that service in Nova Scotia, and they are to blame for it, no one else. That's the bottom line. The other issue that drives me crazy is these bike lanes. We do not need bike lanes in HRM. We never needed them, and we don't need them. The people that thought of those must be out of their minds or something. I drove a bicycle all my life through Halifax, and you drive next to the curb. Simple as that. And you stay out of the way of traffic. So why do you need a bike lane? $100 million? Good God, we could just go buy a water bomber for that. What do you think?
Well, look, if I were a cyclist and I were a daily cyclist, I would look. I think it all depends on your vantage point and what your stage of life is. I used to years ago when I lived in another city, St. John, used to bike a lot and used to wish that there were bike lanes because I think it inherently does make your life safer as a cyclist, Cameron. So. Look, I don't bike anymore, and I'm not passionate about it at all. I view it as it's a controversial issue. We talk about it a lot on the show. I see why it's controversial. So I think it depends on your perspective, Cameron. If you were a cyclist, you would probably, and you were, but if you were still a cyclist today, I think you would agree that it would make your life better. Would you not agree with that, Cameron? Not saying that we should do it, but from a cycling vantage point, I think it is better, is it not?
No, I don't think so. We still all know how to ride a bicycle. You ride it next to the sidewalk. That's as simple as that. And that's the way it's always been. What do you need a bike lane for? If you're that stupid, you need a bike lane, you shouldn't be on a bike to start with.
Well, Cameron, I mean, look, logically, would a bike lane make a lifesaver for a cyclist? I think it would it not? It's going to give you some protection, is it not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's any data out there to prove or disprove that theory.
Well,
you know, the bicycles, for example, they don't pay anything to be on the highways or the city streets. We used to have a $10 fee when I was a kid that my father used to pay, but cyclists nowadays don't pay anything, nor do they have any liability insurance.
Yeah.
You ever been hit by a bicycle driving 5 kilometers an hour? I have. Hurts like hell.
Yeah.
And if there was insurance out, I would have sued them then. But they don't, I don't get it. They want it all their way, but they don't want any to pay anything for it.
Okay, Cameron, appreciate the call. Take care. Thanks for your comments. 902-405-6000. Look, I do think that the Cycling Coalition, if you want to call it that, has a lot of sway here in the city. For sure it does. And I think it's safe to say that it's disproportionate. That's my opinion anyway. But look, would bike lanes make your life better if you were a cyclist? Absolutely. Do they make life safer for cyclists? I think that, I don't know if I'm sure there's empirical data out there, but logically speaking, it would appear, it's pretty simple that it would make your life simpler as a cyclist. Is it worth $100 million we're putting into it? Is it worth the potential traffic congestion that some suggest that it causes, including the premier of the province and the mayor of the city? I think that is a good debate and worthy of having. But does it make your life better as a cyclist? Absolutely it does, and absolutely it would. And if I were a cyclist and I were 25 years old and I were looking at 20 years of wanting to commute or via bicycle in Halifax, would I be for bike lanes? Yeah, I probably would. Because when it comes down to it, all really depends on your perspective generally and your stage in life and what you do and what you don't do. And I would suggest that probably, and I'm not being critical of anybody who opposes bike lanes because I'm somewhat a critic myself. But I try and see it from both both perspectives. But I would bet that the most vehement, adamant people against bike lanes don't drive bikes. I would bet. And I would also bet those people who support it and want it the most are people who do drive bikes. And look, I can honestly say, I don't know about these counts that the province and the councillors say that they have, which counts how many bicycles they see every single day. I honestly try and notice every day in my commute, which is not exactly rush hour, but it's not crazy early, and to and from work each day, and I see on average one bike a day each commute, one a day. That's from Spryfield to here in the north end of Halifax. I see one bike a day. And that's not me not seeing bikes because I'm not whatever line that people say suggests that we don't notice it. I try and be cognizant of it each day. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. Now, that said, where I drive, there are lots of stretches of that drive where there are no bike lanes. So if there were bike lanes, would there be more cyclists? Probably. But again, is it worth the investment? Is it worth the interruption to regular traffic and road infrastructure? That's a good debate. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back. Taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. John's giving us a call. Hello, John.
Good morning, Todd. How are things?
I'm well, you?
Good, Todd. Well, I guess it happened, didn't it? We didn't know when, but we knew we were going to have a fire. Now we got one. Todd, opinion with closing down the woods, I am for it, but unfortunately it doesn't involve everybody, does it?
No, it does not. You're right.
That is that's a sore point with me. Listening to your caller there, Peter, I believe was his name. Very knowledgeable in these matters because he did this for a living, fighting fires for the province. It's people like Peter who should be consulted before our politicians who look after the bottom line in some ways, the bean counters make decisions which effectively affect the whole province, every individual. We had our premier mention years back when he was questioned about the pay rates and raises our elected officials are getting. And his comment was, well, you've got to have a good compensation package to get smart people. Well, I think we missed out on something there. But this fire ban, Todd, ban fires, ban smoking in the woods, ban people from going in the woods, but include everybody. We are, unless you're living in a township or a city, the rest of us do live in the woods. I walk out my front door 100 feet from the woods. I don't go in the woods around my yard. But after this is over, I would love to see the province include some people who are involved with this, the ATV groups who are big in this province. I know on the trail right below me, they drive like bats out of hell. A lot of them don't have any mufflers in by the sounds of it. You can hear the machines backfiring all hours of the night. So a little bit of clamping down needs to come a long way. And when a gentleman says on your program, well, you can walk the roads. Well, you go to rural Nova Scotia, the sides of the roads are grown up with grass, which usually does not get looked after till late fall. Now those are tinder dry, brown and crisp. So all the people who are walking and smoking, if the ashes blow off or they stamp out their cigarette, there's a fire risk.
Mm.
Our province is lacking maintenance on many avenues,
Yeah.
whether it's cutting power lines out to make sure that trees don't fall across the power lines, because there's a fire potential right there. 2 years ago, there was a fire behind me across 103. I had pictures of it. I went to the DNR office in Lunenburg, took the video over, told them that there was an on-site dump there. It's being used, and someone set a mattress on fire, and it was left smoldering. That dump is still there. The mattress is still there. There's something wrong here, Todd. They say they had no manpower, but when I was in that office, it took me 5 minutes to get in because no one would answer the damn buzzer that you're getting in through the security door.
Yeah.
And then once I got in, because I was using the buzzer so often, it stayed stuck. And there was five people came out. What's that noise? What's that noise? How did we stop it? Like, there's something wrong.
Okay.
Anyways, my friend, that's about it.
Okay. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
I agree with the van. Let's just be safe.
Okay, take care. 902-405-6000. Ed's giving us a call. Hello, Ed.
Hi there.
Hi.
My comments are about bike lanes. I work in the car rental industry, and I drive our streets and roads quite a bit. And the least used lanes in the city are the bus lanes. We could put the bicycles in the bus lanes. I know the bus people probably wouldn't like that, but it would allow reasonable price access to these. Buses are not jam-packed on these routes, so that could be a solution.
Yeah, I suppose potentially it could be a solution. I'm not sure that bikes don't use bus lanes. I think they do. Do they not?
Well, that could be they could make that official,
yeah.
And then I'm sure our bus drivers are very competent, so I don't think there should be a big problem there.
Yeah, I think that's probably already happening, Ed. I think any bicycle, any cyclist that I see going down Roby or whatever, they're always in that bike lane.
Well, that's then you don't have to have specific bike lanes. Then, if you can utilize the bus lanes for bikes as well.
Right, but bus lanes aren't in the downtown core, and they don't go down to the waterfront, at least not to my knowledge anyway. So
no, but that's a partial solution.
Yeah.
And my other issue is the numerous construction zones we have on our roadways. I see that where there's merges of traffic, there's all kinds of skid marks because of potential accidents or accidents. My complaint is at these construction merge lanes, they don't have a merge lane so that drivers accessing the lane, say coming out to the 118, have a opportunity to observe the traffic in their mirrors. You have to turn your head at a sharp angle, which is not very practical. And a longer merge lane would make that flow of traffic a lot easier.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate the call. Take care.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Thomas is giving us a call. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, Todd.
Hi there.
Yes, I do have a concern, not about the bike lanes, but about that congestion at the end of Roby Street at Yonge.
Yeah.
Where you have to turn left.
Right. Yeah, I get you.
Okay. So when you come up to that, it creates a beaver dam there, right?
Yeah.
What's happening is that we have a steady flow coming the other way, right? And then you have the Tim Hortons light. So if you're in a bus or something like that, and say if somebody sneaks through coming up from water or down that way, if there's 3 or 4 cars, no big truck or anything can turn, right? So my suggestion would be put in a strict extended flashing green at the end of Roby to turn left with the other light in unison green as well. So gets rid of that plug at the end of Roby because you can never get through.
Yeah, you're talking about coming up Roby on towards Young.
Right.
That's what you're talking about, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, a left turn.
Yeah, that's right.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, it sounds like it's logical to me, Thomas. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, because every time I go by there, or every time I'm, it's the same thing. You're lucky to get through, right? And on top of that, you have walkers. Even if you have a chance, you got a walker or two going across, or somebody with a stroller.
Yeah.
You have a very slim chance, and basically, it's creating a beaver dam effect of traffic at the end of Roby. And I think the lights should be updated and configured together to keep a steady flow at the end. That's all. Yeah. The rest of the lights can stay the same.
Yeah. Interesting idea, Thomas. Thanks for the call. Thanks for the idea.
Thank you very much, Todd.
All right,
Have
take care. Day. You got it, 902-405-6000. Dolores, hello.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. How are you?
I'm well. You?
I'm doing good. I'm just calling about the fire band.
Okay.
And I'm not going to get into a lot of stuff. I just want to mention I worked on a few fires over the years. It's amazing how they get started. It's terrifying. Anyway, the people in Shuby, the DNR people, they are well trained. They've been on fires out west and different places. They know what they're talking about. It's a science. It's very intense. There's so many different factors and things involved with it. So I think people should listen to them. And the other thing that I wanted to mention, I do agree with the fire band. I mean, I know most people are not going to smoke or whatever. But you're going to have the odd person that's going to go in there and say, oh, well, if I want to do this, I'm going to do it. We already have fire ban on. People are not allowed in, and people have been doing it. And they've been, saying, look, this is me, and I got my ticket, and I'm going to fight it. So you're going to have people that are going to go in. But if it cuts down, if it even stops one fire starting, I think it's worth it. I'd rather have the woods left standing, so if I want to walk in the fall, I can go in the woods and not see just black stubs and whatnot. And but the main reason I'm calling today is the fact that everything is so dry. I live in the country, just driving wherever I have to go, because I am in the country, and by the time if I walked, it would take an hour or more. The thing I'm trying to say is that you can even tell the trees are hurting, that they don't have enough water. And a lot of the grass and that along the edge of the roads, dry, wilting. So I just wanted to point that out, and hopefully people will be careful when they're driving, and if people are on ATVs and that, they're careful with those as well on the dirt roads and the pavement. And yes, they do it. I know they drive on dirt roads and pavement. I see it all the time. Sparks can happen. And people, when you're smoking, it's a habit. You don't even think about it. Toss your cigarette out the window. I mean, it's not conscious. People don't. No, I'm not saying everybody does that. The odd person does. It's like littering. Some people just, out the window it goes. They don't think. It doesn't, it's not conscious. So I guess my point is that hopefully people will be more aware, because if there's a spark starts on the side of the road, there's lots of woods around, and those woods are dry.
Yeah, okay.
Even the trees are hurting.
Okay, thanks, Dolores. Appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Take care. We're taking your calls to 1 o'clock, folks. Give us a buzz. 902-405-6000. The open hour continues when we come back. All right, continuing with your calls to 1 o'clock, 902-405-6000. That is the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Tinette's giving us a call. Hello, Tinette.
Hi, Todd. I don't know if you recall, but I work with the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to respond to a few of the issues that your callers have spoken about so far. One, to begin, is the bike lane situation in Halifax. One of your recent callers, claimed that he wasn't sure if bike lanes actually do make it safer for cyclists. And I appreciate the response you gave. And I just wanted to add some court rulings and data to support the information that indeed bike lane infrastructure saves lives and reduces injury. And in fact, several weeks ago in Ontario, there was a court ruling, an Ontario Supreme Court ruling on the Ford government's plans to remove the 3 Toronto bike lanes. And you may recall this was pretty controversial, that Premier Ford was actually planning to pull out these $1 million bike lanes running through the city, 3 of them. And the court ruled that, and I quote, removing the target bike lanes will put people at increased risk of harm and death. And it, based on the charter challenge that had gone forward to try and stop the removal of these bike lanes, the Supreme Justice sided with the group that said this challenged or violated cyclists' right to protection and life and security of the person, which is guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so that's one important recent court decision. Also, of the 64 reported collisions involving cyclists and other what they call micro-mobility users. Now, that can be people on scooters, and e-bikes, for example. The majority of those collisions are on roads with no dedicated bike lanes. And one of the reasons that physicians are speaking up on this issue, and they did submit a 5-page detailed letter to the Halifax Municipal Council concerning the Morris Street bike lanes, and copied the Premier on this. But one injury that requires an ICU bed costs approximately $3,600 a day. And not only is, the emphasis on supporting cars as the only mode of transportation impacting, costs in terms of developing more roads and so on, but it's having an impact on healthcare, even for pedestrians, because the data also shows that putting in bike lanes actually slows down traffic overall on the roads where there are bike lanes, and so this is an advantage to pedestrians. So happy to share this letter. It's also posted on our website, but there's plenty of data to show that bike lanes are necessary for health and safety of cyclists and other micromobility users, as well as pedestrians, and that it will reduce accidents, save on healthcare costs. And there's also lots of data and experience showing that when you build bike lanes and you have them in a well-connected system of bike lanes, not one that starts here and ends a few blocks down the road and isn't interconnected, but when it's well planned and executed, it does motivate more people, encourage more people to get on bikes, and reduces the number of cars on the road. And that is what reduces traffic congestion.
Okay, Jeanette, appreciate your time. Thanks for the information.
Okay,
All
thank
right,
you.
Take care. 902-456-6000. David, hello.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, you?
You having fun yet?
Yeah, sure. Always.
I just want to mention a little bit about the fire, and I didn't hear anybody mention, or even yourself before our show started, about flying drones over the fire yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, how brainless is that?
Yeah.
And have to be told and advertised and published and on the news to be told not to fly drones interfering with the water bombers. And then they wonder why they can't go in the woods. That's the same mentality.
Yeah.
It's like they were told not on Governor's Lake and Susie Lake not to boat and stay out of the water so you don't get scooped up by a water bomber.
Yeah.
This is the percentage of people, Todd, that I agree and disagree with you. I agree with you that complete fire ban wasn't thought of. I agree with that without sitting down and trying to figure out a plan and just having a straight ban. But I disagree with people who call and say, why can't I go for a walk in the woods? Why can't I do this and why can't I do that? Because a small percentage of us are irresponsible. And that's the issue here. Like the gentleman you had on before mentioned about driving down the road and having grass in the ditches and so on and so forth and throwing cigarette butts. Todd, not everybody lives in Halifax. Not everybody's surrounded by concrete. Not everybody has bike lanes. Not everybody has sidewalks. And not everybody has paved roads.
Right.
There's people that live in the suburban area that call your show and that try to get their point out about where they live and how they live. And people in Halifax call your show and say, well, why can't I take my dog and go for a walk? Like you have to really think about the whole situation here. That it's more than just the Halifax. The sun doesn't set on Halifax.
Right.
And it seems like that's all that gets talked about.
Yeah.
Is Halifax, Halifax, Halifax.
Well, Dave, wouldn't you say, though, that those same irresponsible people that you're talking about are probably going to break the rules regardless whether there's a travel ban or not?
Well, everyone's going to break the rules. Good point. You make a good point. Watching the news about this veteran, you've seen that. You had it on your show.
Exactly. He didn't care.
Who knocks on a door? He knocks on a door and says, I'm going to go do this, bring your camera, and watch me go in the woods and give me a ticket. Like, how ludicrous is that?
Yeah. So
what does that prove?
So that's the point, right? Well, I hear you, but I think that speaks to the broader point, whether you have a ban or travel ban or not. You generally the law-abiding, responsible citizen pays the price. Is my point, David? Which is sucky with all of this, right? That is crappy, right?
It is, and we all make mistakes. I'm not saying I'm perfect. You're not saying you're perfect. We all make mistakes, but you have to really look at the situation as, did we panic? Maybe so. Maybe we did panic, but we didn't panic this year. We panicked in 2023. We panicked in 2009 in Porter's Lake. We're still panicking. And to answer your question about water bombers, is it just because there's a fire behind Kent's that water bombers get talked about? Well, water bombers were talked about in Tantallon. Water bombers were talked about in Porter's Lake.
Yeah.
And so when you look at it, Todd, and you say, why? Why can't we? Why didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, why don't you call Stephen McNeil and have him on your show? Why don't you have the ex-NDP premier on your show, maybe someone before him, and sit them down and ask them why, when they were sitting in the seat, they didn't come up with the idea.
Yeah, okay, David, listen, I'm up against it. I would say that the government of the day is where the buck stops, though. That's the reality of it, right? So, anyway, David, listen, I appreciate your call. I got a boogie. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, bud.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue the calls till 1 o'clock. We'll be back. All right, taking your calls, 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Continuing with your calls till 1 o'clock, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Stacy's giving us a call. Hello, Stacy.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi. I agree with the fire ban. I had an interesting situation related to me yesterday from someone who was evacuated from a work site at the Bears Lake, and they were moved across the road to behind another store where someone immediately managed to light up a cigarette standing beside really dry grass. And there was a couple of managers there. Nobody said something. Finally, somebody went over and said, "Oh, you want to be careful with that." I wonder if the Costco cameras managed to catch that, but it just seems really irresponsible given the situation here and what we've already experienced.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I can't. I'm certainly not going to argue with that, Stacey, for sure.
There's that kind of mentality that starts fire.
Yeah.
And all the inconvenience and the danger they put the fire people in, the first responders, the police. People don't think about that. This is an awful lot more involved than just, did you start a fire? Because there's already fires here that are really stressing people out, and they've got enough to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so anyway, just I put that out there that there really are people that would do that, and other people that stand around and let it happen. So.
Yeah. Okay, Stacey, appreciate the call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. 902-405-6000. Chris, good afternoon, Chris.
That's you, Chris.
Hey, Todd. Happy Wednesday.
Indeed.
Just a couple of quick things. I just wanted to mention something before it's more about the bike situation. As you know, I'm the bike guy. So what I wanted to mention was there's a lot of talks about this forest fire stuff. I know that it's a tragic thing, that there's hectares of land being destroyed by this thing. At the same time, I just listened to Stacey there. She nailed it right on the head. I don't think you need to get people out of it. I think it just need to take responsibility and use your head and be responsible and be careful. I mean, blazing up a cigarette after you got taking it to the and go, oh, yeah, right by the – can people not go, yeah, maybe I need to use a bit more common sense? Because that's really what it comes down to, Todd. Would you agree?
Well, it's common sense and it's courtesy and it's concern and it's yeah, for sure. Obviously it doesn't make any sense why people would do that, especially considering everything that we've been through. But sadly, some people will be irresponsible. It's absolutely true.
But it's like she said, the people that are going to do it are going to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Those are the people that are the ones they should be watching for, not the people that are actually taking care to do that. So anyway, I'm going to get away from that because I'm not sure what to think. Equipment that's not here. When I worked for the city, we had a bunch of these giant snow blowers that we had when I was working for the city, and they sold them to Newfoundland or something. It's kind of nuts that we don't have our own planes, that type of thing. But on a more positive note, I'd like to mention there's a gentleman that called a little while ago saying that how when we were younger, and you mentioned too that you biked when you were back in New Brunswick.
Yeah, I did.
And I'll tell you something. I've mentioned this to you before. We've spoken. The bike lane thing, yes. And I heard that lady say the bike lane thing, it's safer and this and that. But when you have a city that already has roads that were designed for horses and carriages 250 years ago, you can't narrow the roads anymore, Todd. I think that, for instance, when I ride around the Sambro Loop, there's a white line, that's like a bike lane.
Yeah.
And I feel perfectly safe in it. I feel fine. I'm hoping that the vehicles are watching what they're doing when they're driving. But I think also part of the thing, too, is people are distracted. Todd, when we were younger, people didn't have cell phones. They didn't have GPS machines in their cars. They didn't have any of this stuff. So I think naturally people felt a bit safer riding their bikes because people weren't as distracted. But I have to kind of think, if you have the size, a city or an infrastructure, for instance, like in Toronto, where they're saying Ford's trying to take them out. Yes, I think in Toronto, where you have a much higher volume of traffic and you have more people, you have more people with strollers, more people on bicycles, more scooters, all this stuff, you're going to have, it's a safe thing. But they have wider roads in a lot of places. They do have some narrow ones too. But like I said before, I got around fine when I was younger because the roads were wider and there was more asphalt. And now it's become like, okay, well, let's make bike lanes, then have parked cars as well on the side. Like, it's just, everything feels like it's getting more and more condensed, but our population is growing all the time and there's more and more people coming. How do you fix that? Like, how do you make it so it's safe? You know?
Yeah, well, I think you make some good points in that people are definitely more distracted now for sure. And that Sambor Loop, I drive around that regularly, kind of recreationally, and I see a lot of bicyclists on that. And I know exactly what you're talking about. That's a decent road that's I think to your point, is wide enough, right? And so I see your point. I definitely take your point. So are you saying, Chris, that you don't think that bike lanes should be on the peninsula, or what? What? I don't want to misinterpret you here.
No, you're not misinterpreting. I think that they make it safer. Yes, I agree with that lady that called earlier that was talking about the health stuff and that, and people having to go in because they get hurt because they're on their bike and got hit or whatever. But I think that really the motorists need to be aware of the people on the bikes, and the bike people need to be aware of the motorists. I think really it's another one of these common sense things, is try to stay close to the curb if you can, leave enough room for the cars to go by, that type of thing, and just be safe, just be careful. At the end of the day, it's none of it's complicated. It's all pretty simple. And I won't keep you any longer, but I just want to add one more thing. A friend of mine was in Ottawa, Todd, and he was out in the parks there, and they had signs up. Yeah, they had signs up about don't smoke. Mm-hmm. And he's a smoker. So when he goes in there, guess what? He doesn't smoke. Because of the simplicity of a sign that says don't smoke in here. It's dangerous.
Right.
And it's the flicking, you know what I mean? And that was just a little add-on I wanted to mention, because he just got back at this fella, and he's my friend, and he just said he was up visiting his family in Ottawa, and they've got signs all over the place, in the woods and on the trails, don't smoke.
Yeah. Awareness does help for sure.
Sure it does.
Yeah. Okay, Chris, appreciate the call, pal.
Yeah, for sure. Good talking to you.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. Keith. Hello, Keith.
Hi, how you doing, Todd?
I'm well, you?
Good. I just want to start off kind of a couple things here. I'd like to give a shout out to the guys that are out there right now, not very far from my place. I live in Clayton Park, and they're in the woods now fighting this fire. And I'd also like to give a shout out to New Brunswick for having those 2 water bombers available. I think those really helped. And there's one thing, the drone flying thing, I think that's just totally irresponsible. They should be fined if they're caught. And I had my stuff packed yesterday. I still have my stuff packed now in case something changes with the fire. So people that live in this, hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so people who live in this area out here in Clayton Park where I am, or around there, they should maybe, just in case, have some stuff ready in case we get an evac order, because that fire can change. The wind can change, the fire can pick up, as you know, right?
Yeah. People being prepared is always a good thing. Having a plan and being proactive can definitely make a big difference.
Well, I had my stuff back yesterday, as I said, and I've still got it now, ready to go.
Yeah.
A fire is something I've dealt with. I've lost my home in a fire when I was a teenager, and I also helped fight. Yeah, so I'm a little area. I also helped fight a forest fire when I was a kid, or late teens, right? And it's a very dangerous, dirty, hot job. So it's nothing to be taken lightly. And I think that maybe trying to talk fast here, but I think maybe something should have some kind of a plan for the next time this is going to happen again. How about we purchase a water bomber. I don't know how that goes, if that goes through the feds, if it goes through provincial government, but I think Mr. Houston should maybe have a plan for when this happens again, and it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
And maybe have one of those water bombers on hand. I watched the video on those things. They're amazing. They're so fast.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that we're not the only ones that would need them, and we've not placed any orders for water bombers. But the Manitoba government has. They put $80 million down payment for 3 new water bombers earlier this year, and they won't be available till the 2031-2032 fire season. So we would likely be a decade or more, even if we proactively wanted to invest in water bombers today. So we are going to be at the goodwill of other provinces for a long time when it comes to water bombers, Keith.
Well, I hope that they're available.
Well, they're not. That's it, right? There's a huge backlog for manufacturing. The other provinces.
No. I mean, I hope the other provinces are going to be able to send their water bombers here to the end of the Canada here in the East Coast to help us along, because I knew it was just a matter of time before something like this happened. And I'm a little bit, I kind of feel, because I know what it's like to lose a home. And, I think perhaps something more can be put in place to keep an eye on this province for the next time this happens. And as far as staying out of the woods, I think for my part, witnessing a fire and having to fight a fire, I think it's a good idea, but I think maybe the next time they should be more kind of have a plan in place and maybe just be able to do certain things instead of, instead of banning everything, maybe just have more of a plan in place that we can, you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that, but you're going to get people that are going to break the rules and, think it's whatever, you get your drone up in the air and you're going to get your TikTok and you're going to get YouTube likes. And it's like, it's just ridiculous, right? You know what I mean? You're putting people's lives. You can't get those planes in the air. Right. If that's the case, you're just really messing things up. So I would advise them not to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thanks, Keith. Appreciate the call. All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
X.
All right, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. That is the way to get a hold of us. Let's go back to the phone to talk to Dave. Hello, Dave.
Yes, hello, Todd. Just like to talk about this tariff that was levied on our canola farmers, which is $1 billion industry, China, 76%. And no resolve yet with the U.S. tariffs, Carney, that is. So this one's a biggie. Just thought I'd bring that up. I know we have a lot of other important subjects to talk about, but I would like to talk about these fires. I think we need to get to the root of the problem. How do they start? And, we had this $25,000 fine out there.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure about the Susie Lake fire. That looked like it was back in the woods to me. So is this $25,000 fine freaking everybody out enough to keep them out of the forest? A lot of arsonists out there, a lot of firebugs, sadly, that are still out there. There are homeless encampments, and I'm not blaming them entirely.
No, but that's true, though. That is an issue for sure. That's an issue we have to look at.
They tend to want to be near the city to, have the convenience of services and what have you. And many of them don't want to volunteer themselves to go into the pallet homes that we've built or structures because they like the freedom to do what they want. So, again, that's not what I'm saying, but they're usually in the fringes around our urban sprawl. So that's something that is troubling to me. And again, how are these fires starting? Now, these drones I will add, are menacing. I think an all-out ban wouldn't be a bad idea, but it's too late for that because around the world, they're used in, look at the war in Ukraine. Both Russia and Ukraine use these things, and they're not big drones. They can be modified to be very destructive, whether they're flown into a tank. You put an explosive on something like that or something very flammable, and I'm not suggesting this is what people could do. God help us if this is the case. But when you see these fires that are in the backwoods and there's literally no lightning strikes or whatever, because lightning is the only natural way to start a fire. And I probably brought this up before, but fire needs at least 450 degrees to burn.
Yeah.
That's an orange fire. That's just a low-level fire. Yeah, glass, whatever, but not likely in the backwoods. So what is starting these fires, I question. And, I hope to hell we're not using people or, again, there's a lot of deranged individuals out there. There's a lot of people with mental health issues. And like that, again, the Susie Lake fire. Have we found out, Todd, how that started? Because, we need to get on this and figure out a way of, how are these fires started? And we had a water bomber down in California, or one of our water bombers fighting the Palisade fire, and that was clipped by one of them was clipped by a drone. So people have these drones, and they can fly them from very far distances. They're very sophisticated things,
right.
But again, they're very menacing. But another thing I'd like to put a shout out to our American friends to the south. According to CBS, there's 600 U.S. firefighters in Canada right now helping out our cause. So, as we did with the Palisade fire. So I know we have taken, like the U.S. are no longer our friends, and we're very upset about this and that. But you know what? We're still pretty tight in that way. And when things get really ugly, we will be there to help one another. I wouldn't be surprised Maine may come into the mix as well. I don't know how many bombers they possess, but we're obviously seeing a crisis, I guess, when it comes to fires. But again, I am miffed, Todd, on how these fires have started. I really am. And I think that's one of the root of the causes. If you have no lightning, which is a natural cause of fires, then in nature, it takes its course, right? It gets rid of diseased trees or whatever. But this is something beyond that, in my opinion. So I just put that out. And again, I salute the people that are out there fighting these fires. Here's another thing, Todd. What about our armed forces? Perhaps, we have men and women out there that are, on computers right now doing things, finding things to do, or whatever. And I'm not just saying it's a waste of time, but perhaps maybe they could be trained in firefighting to a certain degree. And maybe some of the equipment in the military could be designed as we go forward with NATO and what have you. Because we're going to be spending more money in equipment, perhaps they could look into something like a Hercules or something like that that would be capable of. I mean, we do possess Hercules planes; they're massive, and if we could modify that, and again, it's a possibility, and we could use them as dumping water or whatever. They could be used for various things, I'm sure. So, just my thoughts, Todd.
Okay, Dave, appreciate it. Thanks for the call, pal.
Cheers.
All right, take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Thanks.
All right, continuing with your calls. The way to reach us is 902-405-6000. Again, 902-405-6000. Jake's giving us a call. Hello, Jake.
Hey there, how you doing?
I'm well, you?
All right, myself. I'm a man of few words. I just wanted to make a few pointers. The first caller was a caller about the bike lane, or one of the callers was a caller about the bike lanes. I agree with bike lanes. I don't mind bike lanes. I think they are a very good thing. However, I think that the people that are using the bike lanes are in traffic and in the city should have some sort of registration and a very minor insurance. That's my personal opinion. The second thing, I am a volunteer firefighter. It is extremely dry. I don't agree with every single measure in place. However, I don't think people should be having campfires or anything. And for all the Facebook guys are on there complaining about how they can't have their campfires and whatnot, 99% of them I don't see at the fire calls that I go to. And the third thing I just wanted to point out, the EV mandate will never work.
Okay, it's a little disjointed, but why the EV mandate will never work? Why do you say that?
Well, just because I live far back in the country, and the power goes out all the time, and like our commute to work is 30 minutes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they can barely keep the power on as it is now. I don't understand how when we're getting worse hurricanes all the time now and stuff, and the power goes out for a week, I just don't see it working. And where's the power coming from? Anyway, and I don't get a lot of time, and the service is terrible here. I just wanted to make a few good points, or not. I don't know if they're good or not, but they were points, and I love the show.
Okay, Jake.
And thank you.
Thanks
Thank you
for the
very
call.
much.
Thanks for the call, bud. Take care. 902-405-6000. Tim, hello.
Hi there. How are you doing today?
I'm well. You?
I'm good. No, I called in because I had forwarded a letter to Lena Diab-Metledge. She was my MP. I think she's in the cabinet now with Mark Carney. And also the Natural Resources, provincial and federal. My idea was that the firefighting situation globally is getting worse and worse. So an international force that would be supported by internationally and could fight fires north during our summer and the southern hemisphere, and therefore not sitting in hangars for 9 months a year. And municipalities and provinces' budgets just can't afford this equipment. And that's my opinion.
Well, you say you can't afford the equipment? You're talking about firefighting equipment?
Exactly. Bombers, that sort of thing. I don't believe municipalities can afford it, really. I don't.
Well, it's not the municipality. It would be the province that would be that would own it and procure it, would it not?
I would think so, but even provinces. I mean, some provinces do have them, but it's not just Canada's problem. It's it's a global issue in Europe right now. Also, California earlier, and in the winter down in the southern hemisphere. If we purchase this equipment, like bombers and that, they're going to be sitting for 9 months in hangars being maintained. It's just a really tough budget for a provincial government.
Well, how do you afford not to, Tim? Really, like there are some things that you can't afford not to have, in my opinion. When you got woods and you've got all that's tied in with the woods and all the homes and all that goes with it, how do you afford not to protect that or cover that, right?
Exactly, and it's obvious not getting better. But my idea reference that is an international fund that is a global effort with a international fighting force that could work in the north this time of year and in the south during our winter.
Right.
Well, and maybe then we could afford it.
Yeah, I suppose, Tim. I take your point. I think that's an interesting concept. I don't see it happening because of the coordination, and not to be a naysayer. I think there's a lot of great concepts and great ideas that'll never happen, and I think that if 50 years ago somebody would have thought of that and saw the foresight to champion that perhaps that would have been a great model, but it's probably not going to be realistic anytime soon, unfortunately, Tim.
Due to politics, I think you're probably
that's
right.
And jurisdictions and all that stuff, and how do you cost share it and all that. But I think as a concept, Tim, it's a good one. I really do.
I saw a combined effort in fighting.
Well, like to your point, certain seasons, certain jurisdictions would need them. Therefore, it wouldn't be just sitting in one spot, right? I get that. I take that as an interesting concept. It is.
Okay, Todd, thought I'd run that by you.
Okay, Tim, thanks for the call. Take care. Why not perhaps the Atlantic provinces could perhaps team up and share resources, and I think that's an interesting concept as well. But again, the problem is now we're behind the eight ball big time, and even if we were to be proactively purchasing water bombers, I'm talking about fixed wing planes at this point, not helicopters, it would be probably at least a decade before we'd get them. And again, the government's kicked us down the road, and this is the problem, right? 902-405-6000, that is the way to reach us. Patrick, hello.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just thinking about this whole scenario with the fires and wondering whether or not, like when we were in high school, we used to get time off of school to go fight the fires. Why wouldn't they recruit people, young people, middle-aged people, older people, to go out and support? Like they'd put a 75-pound tank on us, and we would do cleanup.
Yeah.
So, we dig up, get the root fire. So I'm not sure I understand what happened to that. Probably some legalities, I guess. And the cutbacks in the fire, I mean, we lost ours in Fox Point. We don't have a fire on Fox Point. We got one up in Black Point. But, I mean, the cutbacks have really, I think they've hurt us a lot. And what happened to the fire towers? They were great for spotting fires back in the day. They don't have them anymore. So I'm at a loss to figure that one out. And as far as the province sharing the load for these bombers, for example, well, if you look at the infirmary deals with all 4 provinces. If you talk to anybody, I've been in the infirmary several times for various reasons, and the specialists that I know, they have patients from PEI, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. So if we can share our medical stuff, why couldn't we share the issues with regards to the fires that we're having right now? Because all of a sudden, I don't remember having these many fires. Even back in the 80s when we had droughts, and prior to that, I don't remember having these many fires. So, and we never really seem to hear what caused them. I'm at a loss to figure it out.
Well, I think the severe drought conditions is certainly a factor, Patrick, right? That's a factor. But what caused the Susie's Lake fire, we don't know that yet. But it obviously wasn't lightning because we didn't have any lightning, so it must have been human caused.
Yeah, and I taught school for 35 years, and I used to teach a course that we established a long time ago. It was called an ABLE course, Adventure-Based Experiential Learning, and we talked about the woods, and we taught the kids about fires and what to do and bring everything with you and how a fire can start a root fire. We talked about, they don't do that in school system anymore. We lost our funding years ago for that course. It was a beautiful course, and if you look at the number of, the amount of forests that we have here in Nova Scotia, you would think that the school boards would say, let's keep these courses in our programs and teach these kids about fires and give them the opportunities to volunteer and be put on a list for a call, even if you're at work. Well, the boss give you time off to go help out because you have some experience. That's just a typical government, I guess, reaction rather than proaction. But hopefully the government's going to sit down and come to grips with this and work with teachers and work with the communities to keep an eye on their forests and keep an eye on people who are out there, because I'm sure there's an arsonist or two out there that are doing this. Part of it. Yeah. Gotta be.
Okay, Patrick. Appreciate the call. Take care.
Sure thing.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You got it. 902-405-6000. Owen, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well, you?
Good. So I'll be real quick, but yeah, I was up at Costco yesterday when it started, and by the time I came out, it was really going, so I was leaving the area. And the reason why they have the woods ban, and I'm all for it, is because, like, when I was driving out to Washmill, there's people driving in and letting people out of their cars to go run up the road to go take pictures of it. Like, you're just in the way. And now you got people flying drones over it. So, like, not everybody that goes into the woods is going to cause a fire, but you're going to have a bunch of idiots that probably will.
Yeah, I think
not
you're
everyone's
right.
flying the drone, but, there's enough idiots that are doing it that it's causing a disruption for the planes.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my point. Real quick.
Okay. Thanks, Owen. Appreciate the call. Take care. 902-405-6000. We'll continue with your calls when we come back.
Backs.
All right, continuing with your calls, 902-405-6000. That's the way to reach us. Again, 902-405-6000. Let's talk to Chris. Hello, Chris.
Good morning, or good afternoon, Todd.
I've been listening to your show on and off because I've been at work and haven't had the opportunity, and I don't know if anybody's brought this up or not, but what is the approximate cost of a water bomber to buy it?
Let's see here. I saw a story that I was referencing on the CBC website, and let's see, what did they say? Oh my, I'm just scanning this now. Well, the Manitoba government put down $80 million down payment on 3 water bombers earlier this year. So if $80 million was the down payment, then we're talking huge dollars.
Okay, because while I just had a minute there before I made my call, and I checked on one that's made in Texas, and they're claiming the cost of it is approximately $3 million US.
I would think it would be more. I think it would be more than that, but.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But it says 4 million Canadian. But I just Googled it. I can give you the model number of the aircraft or the name of it, and you can check it yourself. But I'm reading it right here off the internet. 2.5 to 3 million USD. Maybe it's a smaller Type 1 or whatever, but it seems with all the specifications and what they build them for, quick refill and stuff like that, they fill up at lakes and other bodies of water and so on. It seems like a pretty economical choice to me. And they do say in the article that the Northwest Territories government purchased 8 of them for approximately $26 million total.
Yeah, so they're not the
CBC article.
So they're not the helicopters, are they? They're the fixed wing aircraft.
No, they're not the helicopter. I looked at they're showing a picture of one. It's yellow, and I mean, it's obviously a plane with wings and pontoons and that sort of thing. Yeah. Now, they may be a smaller version of what this $80 million thing is or whatever, but, I mean, and that's just a cursory inquiry that I made on Google, so I'm sure that, I mean, I shouldn't say this. It must be right because it's on Google, it's on the internet. Yeah. It doesn't have to be right, but I can't imagine why it wouldn't be. But to put it in perspective, I guess, and the first thing that hit me is that if in fact it was, and these are probably smaller, more versatile, more agile planes and stuff than what these other really expensive ones are, but $4 million apiece. To suppose it was that $100 million for bike lanes or 25 water bombers.
Yeah, well, I suppose. I mean, one issue is not necessarily is the other, but so what's your point? Your point is that you feel that as a taxpayer, your money would be much more better invested in planes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And $84 million to the Water Commission for a new building. Well, that's 20 water bombers. I'll qualify this. If this article is correct that I'm reading here. And it seems, and I've read 2 or 3 different sites that have it on, and it appears to be correct. But if that's the case, I think the taxpayers' money would be way, way better spent. If that's true, would you not agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I think that
you want bike lanes or 25 water bombers.
Well, I don't know that it's a one or the other, quite honestly. But if you had to make the choice, it's pretty evident that you need to protect the resources, right?
Well, it's a matter of prioritizing the money, and if any government level can justify $100 million for bike lanes, we certainly could justify that amount of money for water bombers, I would think, without any question whatsoever. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that on a comparison basis, we have to make judgment calls in our own personal lives all the time. If you go out to trade your car or your truck or whatever you've got, you kind of look at different models, and if you see one that's a little bit cheaper, has more features, you say, hey, I'm going to go for that because that's more bang for the buck.
Yeah.
So you might buy the water bomber truck instead of the bike lane truck.
Well, it's kind of like if you have the house and you have a bad roof, or bad windows and a bad roof, you don't spend a bunch of money on the kitchen and the bathroom until you fix the envelope of the house. Kind of the same thing, right? I mean,
exactly.
You have to protect the resource.
Exactly.
Yeah. By the way, I've got a couple of emails from a couple of people. So take it as you will, but it seems to me this person says the cost of a Canadian CL-415 water bomber, also known as a Bombardier 415 super scooter, varies depending on the source year of data, but estimates generally price the unit between $35 and $37 million US. So much more than the $2 million that you referenced.
Oh, okay. Since these people are listening, this is the aircraft. It's an Air Tractor 802 F as in Frank Fire Boss.
Right.
And it's made in Texas.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Chris.
And I Googled what's the cost of that, and that's what came up.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you, Todd.
Appreciate it. Take care. 902-405-6000. Charlie, hello.
Hello, Todd. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm a retired helicopter pilot and firefighter from the States. And I know we've been talking about water bombers most of your episode today. But there's another aircraft that can deliver water from the air, and that's, of course, a helicopter. Mm-hmm. There's a thing called a helibasket, also known as a Bambi basket. They are relatively inexpensive. I mean, probably on the order of $10,000 each. And Canadian Forces has a phenomenally large number of helicopters available at any given time. You've got all these cormorants flying around. They're all capable of hoisting quite a large capacity helibasket and delivering water on a fire repeatedly many times in an hour. Nobody's really discussing, utilizing these helicopter aircraft that belong to the military. It's a federal thing. You're going to have to get, Carney's buy-in. But goodness gracious, it's a relatively inexpensive, quick and easy solution to utilize the assets you've already got, those helicopter assets, and simply add on 30, 40, 50 of these heli baskets, get the pilots trained if they're not already trained to carry a sling load. It's only about 3 or 4 hours worth of training, and they'll be qualified. And now all of a sudden you've got tremendous capacity to deliver aerial firefighting capability anywhere in the province.
Wow.
It's just a matter of reaching out and making this a federal solution. They've got those assets. They are sitting there. There is no war on, but there's a serious problem with wildfires.
It's very interesting. And, of course, we would have all kinds of helicopters here in the province of Shearwater and Greenwood, I would think, right?
Absolutely. You have tremendous assets sitting on the ground, and they're being utilized every once in a while for search and rescue, but not much else. That's really what their primary purpose is. It's SAR or SAR, as we call it. But they can just as quickly be called into service to lift a heli basket, to lift a Bambi basket. And as a matter of fact, I live out in Musquodoboit Harbor. We had a fire here a little over a month ago. And I looked out the back door of my house, and there was the Department of Natural Resources had a relatively small helicopter, a very lightweight single-engine helicopter, and it was lifting probably a 300-gallon heli basket and making continuous repeated runs to that fire from Musquodoboit Harbor, from the harbor. You don't need a water bomber in many of these cases. You don't need to spend that kind of money and hope that asset is available from another province. When you've got all these helicopters at these bases already, you just put a helibasket underneath them. They dip it into the harbor, they dip it into a lake, and very quickly, 2 minutes later, they're over the fire delivering that water.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thanks for the call, Charlie.
Absolutely, Todd. Thanks
for
the show.
Take care. All right, great stuff. Very interesting. Great comments. Great point. All right. Thanks for all the calls, everybody. We appreciate it very much. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow. I didn't get to all of you. For that, I apologize. We'll open the phone lines again tomorrow between 11 and 12 and take your calls. I'd like to thank Vanessa Vandeness on the other side of the glass of the control boards. Doing a fine job as always. We are back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. See you then.